When it comes to towing, seeing is believing. That's why Chevy Truck's advanced camera technology offers up to 8 available cameras for 14 unique views, so you can focus on the view that really matters. Chevrolet, together let's drive. Learn more about Chevy Trucks at Chevy.com. Safety or driver assistance features are no substitute for the driver's responsibility to operate the vehicle in a safe manner. Read the vehicle owner's manual for important feature limitations and information.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Big Ten Football Talk Podcast. I'm your host, Zach Guggenheim, and we are here to talk about the last of our 4 newest members in the Big Ten, the USC Trojans. Before I introduce my guest, make sure to like and subscribe wherever you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, YouTube. Hit that like button, smash that subscribe button. But without further ado, BlackieChan from the Light the Torch podcast. How you doing, my man?
I'm doing great. Happy to be here. Really appreciate you guys send us the invite.
For sure. Just so excited that you guys are now part of the College Huddle community, which of course, for those of you who don't realize, this is a College Huddle podcast along with so many others, including Light the Torch. So make sure you follow the College Huddle on Twitter and go to their website. And of course, make sure to hit up Light the Torch, where we'll talk about where you can find them after the show. But before we get into maybe more about the Trojans, I would love to know how you became a fan, especially being a fan of the Trojans in Minnesota.
So for myself, I was born in Los Angeles. I was born in the Los Angeles area. My dad got a job and they relocated us out to Colorado, where I grew up most of my life. But now my wife, most of her family lives in Minnesota, so that's how I'm here. But my mom is a diehard USC fan. She's been a huge USC fan since she said since like she was 5 years old. So, but it's just been running through my veins since I was born. Funny thing though is my mom married a UCLA fan. Yeah, he went to UCLA for a little bit. So
that's so like. How is that come rivalry game time? Like, is it pretty divisive in your family, or like what does that look like?
So my mom can talk all the smack that she wants, but if UCLA wins, my dad has to keep a close, tight lip.
I see.
He does a little jabs here and there, but he can't go too far.
That's wisdom. That's wisdom. That's what that is. I got lucky. I'm an Ohio State fan, but I married a woman from Indiana, so I'm pretty safe there because typically Indiana and Purdue don't try to mix it up with Ohio State typically. So
if you see our family pictures, it's me, my sisters, and the dog, and my mom all in USC gear. My dad just by himself with his UCLA gear, off in the corner.
Nice. he's in that corner of shame, like where the rest of you in the crimson. Yeah. That's awesome. You guys, grew up, most of you USC fans, your dad being, carrying the torch for UCLA, the powder blue. But you have also been podcasting for about a year with Light the Torch. How did that come about?
So a bunch of us were just in a Bleacher Report group for USC, and then just out of the blue, we were one of the guys, B Jones. He was like, "How would you guys feel like about starting a podcast?" And me and him started brainstorming about the names, and we came up with Light the Torch podcast. And we have we have like 4 other people with us. So at one point in time, you can see 6 of us all on screen. So we all just brought that all together and just made it happen, and we've been just growing ever since. And we're happy to be a part of the huddle, so we can get a little bit bigger, so we can reach out a little bit further.
Yeah, well, we're glad to have you guys, and you guys. I think you guys go live Sunday nights, 6 p.m. Is that right?
Yes. So for during the season, we go live Thursday for like game day breakdown, and then Sunday for a post game. So during the season, we go live twice a week, and then in the off season, depending on the situation, we go once.
Okay, and that's 6 p.m. Pacific time, right?
Yes,
Okay.
6 p.m. Pacific time.
Yeah, so for those of us who are East Coasters, 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. We got to do this now with the New World Big Ten. We span all the time zones, so we gotta make sure that we're clear on that. So
yeah,
well, we'll dive right in, because I know that especially those in the Big Ten who have been in the Big Ten for a while, I think there's a lot of mystique around USC, especially because I think USC is a blue blood, a real blue blood. I know Oregon has been trying to really come in and be like, we're a blue blood. It's like, guys, blue blood means like you've been there for a while, not since like 2010. So we gotta, no offense to the Oregon fans, we know you're really good right now, but you're not a blue blood. But there's a lot of mystique, but there's also a lot of transition for the Trojans. But maybe we'll start with this. USC joining the Big Ten. How has the fan base responded to this move?
So it's been a mixed reaction. It definitely was a mixed reaction when we first got the announcement for it. The travel is definitely the big thing for a lot of the fans, having to travel to the Midwest. But then it also was great because we don't have to deal with the Pac-12 network anymore. The Pac-12 network was our biggest issues when it came to the Pac-12. Like, just being able to watch the game was rough. And with being in the Big Ten, we have a lot more eyes on us. So that's great. And then we also don't have to, we do have like 1 or 2 games that are like late at night, but we don't have to worry about Pac-12 after dark anymore.
Yeah. It's interesting. So Kevin Balaji was on here for Bruin Source, the UCLA podcast. And interesting how both of you guys have singled out the Pac-12 network as one of the best reasons to get out of the Pac-12.
Yes.
It was not well run, and that has been, I think, universally true out of everyone that I've talked to in Pac-12 country.
Did Oregon say that in Washington?
I don't know if they did. I'll have to go back, but to be fair, I think Oregon was so excited just about their team that they're like, we're not thinking about the Pac-12 network. And Washington, I think they're all excited. You were talking about exposure and no more Pac-12 after dark. Are there other things you guys are looking forward to as fans?
Ooh, playing at Michigan, playing at Ohio State, all those big time stadiums. Like, I'm ready for a whiteout at Penn State. And for myself, since I'm in Minnesota, I have a lot of games I can get to. I can get to Iowa. I'm definitely going to the Minnesota game, and I'm really going to try to make the Michigan game this year. I'm cutting it close with tickets right now. So, but it's just going to be a lot of new rivalries. Like, we've all, like, USC's always been rivals with like Ohio State and Michigan and Penn State when it came to like the Rose Bowl. But now it's going to be a regular occurrence, and it just brings a lot more excitement for the Big Ten and all the blue bloods in the Big Ten. So it's definitely going to be great. There's going to be a lot more infighting than previously, because like Ohio State and Michigan and then Penn State for the most part are always the top teams. But now it's going to be a lot more infighting, which is great.
Yeah, it's gonna get real.
Yes.
It's gonna be real. Anything that you guys are like, this kind of stinks, like that we're coming to the Big Ten?
Personally, I don't see any issues. A lot of fans will say, may point out that it's going to get cold. I know for a fact, like, since I live in Minnesota, we're playing Minnesota in October. It doesn't get that cold. Like, a lot of people want to say it's going to be cold all the time, but when you get to November area, that's when it's going to start getting the colder areas. But for the most part, I'm not too worried about it. It's just it's going to be tougher. It definitely is going to be a lot tougher than playing Pac-10 or Pac-12 teams. But that's what it takes to be a blue blood. You always have to win those tough games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think we're in a new world now where if you drop a couple, you really have a couple mulligans, which is it's part of the new world of college football.
Yeah, and it's going to keep changing too, because they just upgraded it again for the next year. So
Yeah, I think in 2 years it's going to be 14.
they didn't even
I'll-
give time for the 12 team. So
I haven't. This is the first time I'm saying this. I feel very convinced that something's going to be screwy with the divisionless conferences. I feel like within 4 years we're going back to divisions. Like,
yeah, hopefully. Like I feel like it needs that kind of split to be able to make things a little bit more even in a sense. So
yeah, yeah. Well, let's talk about the team. Lincoln Riley, one of the hottest young coaches in college, but had a disappointing year a year ago. He thought he has Caleb Williams, he has a lot of his team back, and instead goes 8-5, I believe.
yeah.
Where are you guys on how he's done so far, and what are some of your expectations moving forward?
So from last season, we were of course disappointed with how we performed, especially having Caleb Williams, who's looking like he's going to be great in the NFL. But it's just the fact that he kept Alex Grinch is what everyone was very disappointed on. You guys know him. You know him, so
I understand. I understand.
yes. So the fact that we kept him after the Tulane game definitely was rough, but I was in the camp of just like, okay, we're going to hopefully we can dip into the transfer portal and we can work this out, but it just did not work out. And even with like players like Bear Alexander, it was rough, and that was his biggest mishap as a head coach. And he kept him at Oklahoma as well, and a lot of Oklahoma fans are killing us on that. So, and we also kind of killed him on that when it came to keeping Alex Grinch. So, other than that, I think he's done a great job for USC. A lot of people may say differently because of last season, but I think with Coach D'Anton Lynn, it's definitely going to be a night and day situation, just based off everything that we've heard and what we've known from Alex Grinch to what we see with D'Anton Lynn. So,
yeah, there's a lot of optimism with D'Anton Lynn. One of the hottest young coordinators in the country a year ago, stole him from your rival, which that's always that's always adds a little spice to it. You have that hire, and you had a lot of transfers out of that defense.
mm-hmm.
Like, what all is changing, and who are you expecting to step up to help improve this defense?
So what has changed is the culture. A lot of people may say that Lincoln Riley will not know defense. Lincoln Riley will never have a good defense. And like, I understand that's what they're stemming from the past 6 seasons that he's been a head coach. But he's only had really 2 defensive coordinators in the time that he's been a head coach. And he made the wrong decision with Alex Grinch, who was not a proven defensive coordinator before that. So I think he just meshed well with him, like personality wise. I'm not sure why that happened, but with D'Anton Lynn, he's definitely bringing kind of an NFL style defense and a culture to it, toughness, and it's just seeing what he did to us last year when we played UCLA. That was the worst I've ever seen a Lincoln Riley ran offense play against a defense. Like, we had like 3 yards rushing against them. So he said, why not just take what really exposed our offense? Like, he took the defensive coordinator that did the best against his offense ever. So I'm happy with that we got him. And I know the UCLA podcast for the Huddle is not happy with that, but
Understandably so too. He's a great coordinator.
Yeah, and we took 2 of their better players too from them. So, but when it comes to players who I expect to step up, is of course Bear Alexander, because we have Coach Henney. Coach Henney, of course, coached one of the greatest defensive players of all time, and Aaron Donald. So we're expecting him to hopefully work some of that magic with him. And then also we do have we have a transfer in Gavin Meyer, who is who's very experienced with Wyoming, and we've had good experience with Wyoming transfers. And he's a leader on that defensive line, and I think he's going to be the Robin to Bear Alexander in that situation. But then we also have a lot of good freshmen that are coming up, like Carlon Jones and Jade Adesari. Jade Adesari is out of Minnesota, and he's a freakish athlete. He's huge. He was committed to, I think, Ohio State at one point, or was choosing between Ohio State. I can't recall, and then Carlon Jones, he's 6 foot, like 6'3", weighing 315, and that's what we need on that defensive line when it comes to playing in the Big Ten. We need big physical guys, and that's what we've done. And people want to talk a lot of smack about Benny Wiley, but he's definitely beefed up this defensive line, or this whole defense in general.
Yeah. So it sounds like you've gotten a lot of guys on the lines to really embracing physicality, embracing like the need to really beef up on those lines. Are there guys in the back seven that we should be looking at as well? Linebackers, safeties, corners.
Okay. Yeah. So that's where we feel like is our strong point, is our our secondary and our linebackers. We have Easton Mascarenas Arnold, who transferred from Oregon State, which they had a really good defense last year.
Yeah, great defense last year.
He's the cornerstone. He's going to be, you know how they have the microphones in the headsets now, or in the helmets now. He's going to be the one that's primarily getting the calls, and so he's going to be the field general, making sure everyone's set. And so we're excited for him. And then we had Mason Cobb, who transferred from Oklahoma State last year, and the year before that, and he was really productive with Oklahoma State. And we were hoping to have that same that Mason Cobb that we had from that they had from Oklahoma State, but with Alex Grinch's ran defense, they did not know what they were doing, so they were kind of running around with with their heads cut off. So with him taking less kind of responsibility when it comes to play calling and getting people in order, he's going to be able to play to his fullest potential. He's going to be able to run freely and not having to worry about getting other people in check. But then that's for the linebackers. And then we have DeCarlos Nicholson. He transferred from Mississippi State. He's the type of cornerback that D'Anton Lynn loves to have. He's 6'4", like 190. So he's a very rangy. He's very long. And when I was doing my research on him, against like LSU, he played against Jaden Daniels. There was hardly a time that he threw towards his way, and they always wanted to get. I can't remember their top wide receiver last year, but they never had him lined up on him, and whoever else was locked up across from him was always locked down, and they never looked towards his way. So I'm excited for DeCarlos.
Yeah. You joked about, players not knowing where to go in Grinch's defense. I'm like, yep, that sounds about right. But I think that one of the things I think you're helping us get a picture of is I think, and I was here back in February and March, we saw a lot of the defensive transfers, and we saw a lot of just movement with Grinch moving on.
Yep.
And I think a lot of us outside of USC thought, oh boy, like this could get really bad really quick.
Yeah.
And I think what you are painting for us, which I think is just really helpful, there is a lot of talent that has come in, both transfers and freshmen.
Yes.
And you combine that with a defensive signal caller who is certainly one of the best young and brightest coaches. This is a defense that could really make some noise here in a much better conference than people expect. Guys that you didn't, well, you alluded to them, but like John Humphrey and Kamari Ramsey from UCLA, those are transfers that I think are going to make an impact too. DeCarlos Nicholson, you mentioned him, linebackers Cobb and Mascarenas Arnold, like these are guys that were really good at their schools. It's not like you guys are getting the leftovers. You guys are getting proven players at their old schools, which is, not what Florida State got, which we found out yes, it's Saturday, right? I'm going to joke about that because I picked them to win the ACC. That was a great call by me. But you guys are actually getting proven guys to come in and plug into this new system. And I think that's going to be a challenge for a lot of Big Ten teams.
Yes, we do have some inexperience like the freshmen, but we have the talent to do it. So if they can put it all together, which I feel like they will, because just based off of how D'Anton Lynn's philosophy is, he likes to instill the defense slowly, but making sure that you understand it right away. And he says obnoxious communication. So you're always communicating, even if it's overly communicated, you just know what you're doing and you're not having your back towards the offensive line screaming, what am I doing here? So,
yeah. So I think it sounds like expectations for the defense have really risen. Miller Moss was named the starting quarterback. Here, just real off the bat, was it ever not going to be Miller Moss?
So we've heard a lot, because Jaden, he came in the spring, and of course, he was going to be handcuffed behind his back because he didn't really know the offense. He has the talent. He definitely has the kind of Caleb-esque kind of style. If you watched him at UNLV, he knew how to create on the fly. So he definitely has that kind of ability. And he's the prototypical size, 6'4", like 220. So he's a big dude. He has a strong arm. He's able to move, but just not knowing the defense or the offense as much as Miller Moss has, since this is his third year in it, and he's built up a relationship with all the wide receivers. So he just had that head start. But from what we've heard, he was neck and neck towards the end, but it was more just Miller Moss's consistency is what won it all for him.
Okay, so it was actually pretty close then.
Yeah, and we were starting to wonder, like, why is it taking so long for Lincoln Riley to put out QB1? But then we've heard that he made some good progress over the summer when it came to learning the offense. So
okay, well, and last time we saw Miller Moss, I mean, he carved up a good Louisville team. Granted, they were down some guys who opted out, and I think there's some injury there. But I mean, he was much better than I expected in that game. Is that kind of your expectation that he'll be able to do that week in and week out consistently, or is the jury still out?
With the wide receivers that we have, he definitely can do it, because we were down one starting receiver at that time, Brendan Rice, who decided to opt out. But then we also had Taj Washington, who stayed, who did catch 2 touchdowns in that game, and he's always Mr. Reliable. But the sophomore receivers that we have, and we do have some veterans that have came in. One that came back from UCLA back to USC. We definitely have a good balance of great athletes when it comes to they haven't been as proven as some of the others have since they're sophomores, but they everyone knows Zachariah Branch. That's what everyone says about our wide receivers is Zachariah Branch. But I've come to think that he may not have the most yards for our wide receivers. Jacoby Lane, he is a 6'4". He's gained some weight, which is great because he was weighing 160 wet. So he was going to get lit up if he didn't gain any weight, but he's very athletic. I think he could be our leading receiver this year. But Zachariah Branch, he just has all the tools. But Miller Moss, he has all the weapons to do it. If he can, he's going to be more methodical when it comes to running this offense than Caleb was when he was just a magician. But Miller Moss will just be able to carve up, and he'll take the checkdowns if he needs to. So yeah. I feel like it may not be the wow throws, he may not be throwing 6 touchdowns every time, but I think we're just more well-rounded at this point. So he will be a very consistent quarterback for us.
Yeah. You named a number of playmakers there, including Branch, and you said Jacoby. What was his last name? Jacoby
Lane.
Jacoby Lane.
Yeah.
Who are some of the other playmakers we need to be watching out for this season?
So my dark horse, I wouldn't say dark horse, but he was close to being a 5-star coming out of high school. But Mekhi Lemon, he's a sophomore now, and he was probably the least talked about wide receivers in that recruiting class, because we have Zachariah Branch, Jacoby Lane, Deuce Robinson, who was a converted tight end to wide receiver. He's like 6'6", 225 pounds. But I think Mekhi Lemon will probably be close to he'll have a lot of receptions, I feel like, because he kind of reminds me of Amon-Ra St. Brown. He has a great route running. He's very physical, and he has great hands. He may not have like the top end speed as everyone else does, as like a Zachariah Branch, but he's a great route runner, and he's going to be one of those guys that he can go across the field. So I feel like he's going to be a good reception receiver for us, like out of the slot for us. So definitely be on the lookout for Mekhi Lemon.
Yeah. One of the things that is going to be fun, for years, Ohio State has really been the main wide receiver school. Yeah. And now between you guys and Oregon, and there's some other really good receivers, Sturdivant over at UCLA, I think is an underrated guy. There's Will Pauling at Wisconsin. I think Michigan has some young talent there. Maryland has got a really good receiving core as well. Like, it's just fun to see that position start to blossom in this conference,
which normally it wasn't. It was mainly just like the more running back and a ground and pound. But Ohio State, like, since I guess CJ Stroud or so was like, really, he had a lot of those like very dynamic wide receivers. So
yeah, so it'll be fun. There'll be some track meets in this it'll be
interesting.
It'll be good. Speaking of matchups and track meets, you were done no favors in the scheduling department this year, both by the Big Ten, but also by your own administration with with LSU and Notre Dame on the schedule.
Yeah.
How do you guys manage that, especially with LSU and Notre Dame on the schedule? Like, how are you guys going to manage the schedule?
So we really just have to stay healthy, because the second half of our schedule is going to be a little bit easier for us, but like the first half of the schedule is going to be rough. We have LSU opening up, then we have Michigan. It's after a bye week, which is it's good, but then we have the bye week at week 3, so that does not help towards the end. But then we have Penn State at home, and then for the most part after that, it's going to be a little bit easier until Notre Dame. Then we have to go on the road with Washington, and we are on the road against Maryland, from what I can recall. And so that could be a little bit rough going literally across the country for that. But we have a lot of our tougher games besides Michigan at home. So we have Penn State at home. UCLA is a home game basically for us. So that's the thing, is that we have a lot of our tougher games at home.
Yeah, I was going to say, you guys, like, you do travel, but probably the toughest stretch at Michigan and at Minnesota within 2 weeks of each other. Yeah. That we were talking, Oregon. I'm convinced that Oregon's going to drop 1 or even 2 road games from Purdue to Wisconsin, because they go to Purdue, and then 2 weeks later they go to Michigan, and then 2 weeks later they go to Wisconsin, and I'm like, that's a lot of trouble. Yeah, and none of those places are places that are easy to play, even if the team's not as good. Like,
so wait, they play at Michigan?
Yeah, they play at Purdue, they play at Michigan, and they play at Wisconsin in a 5-week, like, it's 5 games. And 3, it's like away, home, away, home, away. And it's all like cross-country travel.
Well, that makes me happy.
So yeah, the road schedule isn't nearly as bad for you guys.
Yeah.
What's the ceiling for you guys?
If I want to be a true USC homer, undefeated.
But there you go.
But if all this with everything goes as what we're hoping it to go, that our defense is, it's hard to be worse than last year. Last year was bad. That was like, I think, a historically bad defense for USC. So if everything, like if we are marginally better, I do feel like a 10-2 season.
Okay.
Like,
so so that like 10-2 might be like the goal.
yes,
And
that
then,
definitely gets you into the playoffs.
Yeah.
That would, especially even maybe a 9-3 season could get you in the playoffs with the Big Ten. Like if you're in the Big Ten or the SEC, a 9-3 team, depending on how bad those losses are, like if you're like losing in like a 1 point, like maybe a 25-24 or whatever score, like that, hopefully the CFP committee actually looks into that stuff. But we have a lot of eyes on us. As long as we can win some of those like major games, like if we can squeak out one against Michigan and then maybe have somehow a lull against Wisconsin, because we have Wisconsin right after that.
Yeah.
Because that could be a lull after if we have a huge victory. But 10-2 is realistically our ceiling.
Yeah. What's I hate to ask this question, but what's the nightmare scenario?
Alex Grinch comes back. No.
That is a nightmare. That is the most terrifying thing you could have said. Anyway.
Yeah, like D'Anton Lynn just takes off his head. Surprise, I'm still here. But no,
it's like an old Scooby-Doo episode.
Yeah, exactly. But I think it could be, I would say, a 7-4, because we do have Penn State and Notre Dame. Those are going to be some tough games. But I feel like we can go undefeated at home. But those games are going to be tough. I know they have an experienced quarterback, Drew Aller, and then Notre Dame has Riley Leonard. So, and I don't know if I agree with Notre Dame's ranking, but they always play us tough, but we have them at home. So 7-4 is a nightmare, like a repeat from last year.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think, and I think going back to what we were saying about,
sorry, I meant to say 7-5. That I was adding up in my head. I was like, okay, that doesn't make sense.
It was 7-4. That'd be like in the old days with the 11 game schedule. So,
yep.
I was just gonna say, I think going back to your saying like 9-3 might be good enough.
Yeah, might.
Well, and like with your schedule, LSU is ranked right now. Michigan is ranked. Penn State's ranked. Notre Dame is ranked. Like that's 4 ranked teams, and then Nebraska, Wisconsin, Minnesota. Like I think people are. I've been saying this. I think people are sleeping on Minnesota. Like that's a tough road game. I think their record's going to be worse than how good they are, because they also have a tough schedule. But Nebraska, Wisconsin, Minnesota, like all those teams could end up ranked.
I think Nebraska is one, because we were going after their defensive coordinator and Tony White, and I like Tony White a lot as a defensive coordinator. So that's a toss up with, and maybe I can't remember their quarterback's name, Dylan Raiola. I think he could be good. Yeah,
that's gonna be. I'll be straight. That's my upset of the year right now is Nebraska USC. So I'm like, that was back in, and I stuck with it. I'm true to that. But like that was back in April and May when I was like, I think USC's defense isn't going to get better. And I think the more I've talked with people, I'm like, I'm going to stick with it because I'm a man of my word. I don't know how I feel about this anymore. So, but you guys have a tough schedule, and it's you go 9-3. You might be one of the few schools that can say 9-3 with this deserves consideration in the playoff for sure. So
I'm hoping so, because if the SEC can do it, the Big Ten can do it.
There you go. Yes, down with the SEC. The ACC certainly can't, and we saw that this past weekend. We're gonna switch gears a little bit.
Okay.
I've never been to LA for a football game.
Okay.
I would love to at some point, and I know many others would as well. If we're going to LA and we're going to the Coliseum, where are we going for food? Where are you pointing us to go to make sure these are the hot spots to go in LA?
I could be basic and say, oh, In and Out or Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles, which they are very good. But my go-to place the moment I land in California is Carney's. It's off Sunset Boulevard, and it's a train cart that people pass by it all the time. But if you go into their parking lot, just go up the stairs. There's a really nice diner in there, and a lot from I know a lot of like stars go there because it's kind of hidden in a sense, but they have really good like smash burger type burgers, and they have great chili, and it's the type of chili that it'll make your stomach hurt afterwards, but it's great when you eat it. So Carney's is like, I can't leave California without going to Carney's.
Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a fun, like Carney's where you know your stomach's going to hurt, but you'll love it anyway.
Exactly. Yes.
That's fair. What's in the chili? Do you know what's in their chili?
Nope. It's their famous chili, and you can get buckets of it to go. You can. Whoa. And I know my mom, whenever, because she's out in Washington right now, she tries to take some of their chili home.
Okay.
Yeah.
You said,
yeah.
Now you said it's sometimes where stars go. Have you seen anyone famous there?
Whoopi Goldberg has been there.
No, that's awesome.
Not Donald Glover, Danny Glover.
Okay.
So he'll go there. My sisters have seen other people there, but I know a lot of people, a lot of stars go there because there's a nice comedy show or comedy place that you go to. Right after that, you can just walk right over to Carney's, and it's good.
Okay. So if you want good local fare in LA, and you want to maybe run into a star or two, Carney's is the place. Yeah. And your stomach might even hurt afterwards.
Yeah.
So,
and if you're at the stadium, do Danger Dogs. They're
Danger Dogs.
Yes, a bacon wrapped hot dog that's deep fried, and you pretty much there's always street vendors that are there just walking by, and you can get some with onions, peppers, mustard, relish, whatever you need for a hot dog, but deep fried with bacon wrapped. So it's great.
Oof.
Yeah.
That sounds amazing, and like I might not survive.
Yeah, cardiac arrest.
I can understand why it's called Danger Dogs.
Exactly. Yep.
Wow. Bacon wrapped, deep fried. That sounds like football food if I didn't know any better. Wow.
Yep. The moment you step out of the stadium, that's all you smell is Danger Dogs.
Ooh.
So like you'll get a Danger Dog going in and then a Danger Dog going out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. If I go to LA for a game, I'm gonna like fast for a week, and then I think I'll survive afterwards. But good stuff. Well, I really appreciate you coming on. Blackie, where can we find you on social media? Where can we find your podcast?
So for the podcast, you can find us on YouTube, and we actually started just recently streaming on Twitch. So you can see underneath my name, it says Light the Torch. Just look us up or it says _ Light the Torch. Someone, an actual musical metal band has the name Light the Torch, and I actually listen to them, so it's kind of funny. But nice. Light the Torch podcast on YouTube, and Light the Torch podcast on Twitch as well. So, and we do stream on X as well. So if you want to watch on X, if you're ever doing that, you can do as well. So
nice. And do you guys stream also on YouTube as well? Or
yes, okay. Mainly, yeah, that's where we started off, and then we started branching off.
Okay, great.
And hopefully Apple, we can get a Spotify soon. Hopefully we're going. Like I think it's all on me. I need to set that up for the Spotify. So if you follow us on Twitch on Twitter now or X, be on the lookout. We'll be dropping that soon.
Good. Spotify is super. It's super simple.
Is it okay? Really, simple, okay.
Yeah, that was how I got started, and when I was actually thinking about doing a different podcast with a friend of mine.
Okay.
Alex Seifert, if you're listening, You are the reason for this podcast. We wanted to do like the anti Skip Bayless, Stephen A, like a reasonable debate instead of like just stupid debate.
Instead of
And
just talking about Alabama this, Alabama that.
we want to, and our first episode was the LeBron, Michael Jordan, like who's the GOAT discussion.
Okay.
And it was really fun. I have it recorded. And we did that episode, and then our schedules never lined up, but I had the account still with Spotify, and I just changed the name. And it's right after COVID, and I was like, oh, I can do this Big Ten football thing. And it was super easy. So Spotify, you'll get there and you'll be like, oh, why didn't I do this sooner?
Yeah, we keep talking about it, and it's been a year. So
yeah, no, it's easy to do. So
okay.
And we should definitely get on there so more people can follow you, because it is good to have you guys on the huddle and able to have some knowledge on the Trojans. And what I think is going to be a really fun season, seeing USC come into the Big Ten and compete with you. You don't get Ohio State, but you get Michigan, you get Penn State, and you get some fun. You get Nebraska, you get Minnesota, which I'm sure you'll be going to that game.
I'm already looking at front row tickets for it too.
Front row. Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
There you go. And people be like, "Who let the Trojan guy in?" But no, it's really exciting to have you guys.
Yeah, we're really happy to be here. It's definitely like it's going to be able to help us grow and be able to bounce some ideas, and like because we've checked out a lot of people's podcasts and we've seen that they've grown, and that's definitely what we want and need. And we want to have other people coming onto our show, and maybe if someone out there is on the huddle, want to play us in maybe college football 25.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, you got to hook up with Russ Johnson out of Purdue. He like started up a whole, I think, dynasty thing, and nice. I don't know if they're still taking new folks, but he was like in the college huddle like Twitter page, and he was like, "Who wants to be part of our dynasty thing?" So yeah, there you go. You go. Sweet. Well, we'll have for those of you listening, we'll have the show notes, all the ways you can connect with Light the Torch. Thank you guys so much. BlackieChan, thank you so much for being a part of the show today. For the rest of you, thanks for listening. And we'll be starting game picks this week, so stay tuned for that as well. Until then, take care. God bless.